through your computer. But, which is fine, I guess we don't need to hear you, but as long as you can hear us. Good, okay.
So we're on Skype then?
No, WebEx. Sent WebEx invite.
Do they accept it?
Yeah, because I asked them, do you want this recorded? Well, if you want it recorded, we'll do it through WebEx.
Okay.
And she said, yes, we want it recorded, so use the WebEx. I don't know, Elizabeth said she might join.
Yeah, she's gonna do it.
Okay, well, she probably doesn't have the WebEx invite, right? I thought she was coming in here.
I don't know if I can forward it. Hopefully all those people on the outside will be in the same location. Yeah, you got it.
I sent it to all of them, so all of them have it. But
Well, they're probably not used to, sounds like they use Skype over there. So having to navigate whatever happens.
well, they had a room in their invite, so I'm assuming they're always going to be in a room, but Hello? Good morning. So, Nora, I see, it appears that you're logged in via computer. You may be able to hear me, but I don't know if you're talking, but we cannot hear you yet. So you might need to dial the phone number. Let's see. So the phone number should be in the invitation.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello? Okay.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right.
Yay. Okay.
Technology.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Now I want to find where the... okay.
So, Nora, by any chance, is Dominique, does he need this invitation as well? Because I didn't see him on the list.
I forwarded it to him. He probably won't call in, but he could be calling
okay.
user 4.
Okay. All right, so are you able to see the WebEx okay, the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so on WebEx, you can make it full screen. In the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you can hit the arrow up to make it full screen, or there's also a view drop-down menu full screen as well.
We're good. We got it. Full
screen. All right, so just let me know when you're ready on your side, and we'll start with introductions.
Okay. Well, look, we can start who's in the room. Most of us are in a room in King Street. Obviously, Nora. We also have, you want to go ahead, Ty?
Tyrone Ward with Rhodes.
George Horning with King County GIS Center.
Jeff Gregg, GIS Center.
Sharon Drago, PMO.
So Sharon, it's Sharon's first day, so I was mentioning that we were getting a new project manager. Her name is Sharon Drago.
Okay. Hi, Sharon.
So
Hi.
we're throwing her right into it, so she's just going to be listening.
We'll go right into the technical details just to confuse you right away.
Yeah, I love the back
All
end,
right, well,
forward.
All right, so we're ready to go when you are.
Okay, well, great. Yeah, on our side, so it's Rhett Harman, Service Delivery Manager, and I'll be working closely with you, Sharon, on this. So I'll be the point on the project side. And Sherry's in the room here as well.
Yep, Terry Bartlett, Senior Account Manager.
And I believe Jay is on the line, and Elizabeth is on the line.
Lead developer.
Hi, it's Elizabeth Marshall, CEO.
All right. So I thought we would just start off hearing from you in terms of what you want to see or what you're interested in from the GIS perspective. We have some demos we're going to show you, but thought we'd at least give you the floor first to get an understanding of what you're interested in seeing, or if there's any specific topics that you would like to discuss, we'll be sure to cover those.
Well, so Rhett, we have the manager of the GIS Center, who's George, and then we also have Jeff, who has some experience with the different product and did some work, custom work for that. So I think we're just interested in seeing a couple different things. One, what is provided out of the box, and then as we get into certain customizations, sort of how does that work, and what are the elements that you would need from the GIS Center to kind of do that, and how would that work? Okay. Sounds good. I was thinking about at least giving an overview in a PowerPoint. Is that okay, or is that? Yes, please, that's
fine. Okay, so just a little bit about LiGO is we do provide the complete solution from the hardware, the telematics devices that go into the vehicles, the network connectivity in terms of communications, the software. We host the software and you log in to the system, a web browser or a phone. And then we also provide the integration API, and that's really going to be primarily focused today, is to talk about the information we can pass over to GIS and vice versa. So the two key things with our solution, it's a platform as a service. So we have sensor integration, so working with devices that have Wi-Fi hotspots or connect up to identify plow down or street sweeping, broom down, to be able to actually map that out. So we're capturing that data and those essentially work activities, and then from there we can pass that data over to key business systems. So obviously ESRI, being able to pass over live vehicle feeds, pass over historic tracks of where vehicles are actually plowing or sweeping the streets, and over to other business systems that are including in, because we're connected up to these vehicles, the odometer readings and other information that's actually being captured from the vehicle itself. So we are going to be providing a variety of devices to the county. This 2630 is going to be one type of device that we're going to provide that connects up to multiple inputs. So sensors, as I mentioned, the plow, right broom, left broom, and so forth. So one of the things with LiGO that's unique is our smart tracking. So we're sending up more data as the vehicle is doing more things and we're doing events. So when the broom is down or when the plow is down, we're sending up more data to get more accurate information, and that really helps on the GIS mapping side, is to be able to see where they're actually plowing or sweeping and so forth on that side. And it's an event-based tracking, so it's not a time-based. So what that means is, again, the tracks, you have the event-based looks more like this versus the time-based over on the right.
So just to clarify, because the GIS people more than most might be interested in how we're doing this and what the result is. So if the vehicle turns a certain angle or goes a certain distance, or the second an onboard system event occurs, like lights go on or plow goes down, then we're pushing a point up to LiGO. And so what we have is we're not fire hosing data, only data that's of value goes up to LiGO. And then what we're doing in LiGO Access is compiling points or or linear features that are available to use in Esri.
So here's just another example of within a cul-de-sac here, some street sweeping data. This is a storm event down in Redmond showing multiple vehicles, multiple tracks, and so we can create detailed reports of these based on when they're doing the plowing, for example. You get better reporting. So when you're wanting to see by vehicle, summarizing what they actually plowed and the total distance comes out both in the map side but also in reports as well. Just a little bit on the interface. So when you log in, you'll have a vehicle name. The vehicle name is going to be that can be brought over to ESRI. So there's a key ID that's brought over with the vehicle name, so you can display that. There's also the track. So there's the real-time vehicle, but there's also historic tracks, and you can go back in time and get the track information.
And just to note too that it's really any mobile asset we can track. It's not always vehicles, and I think the county wants to track some trailers and things like that.
And we can set up business rules within the system that are called events. So things we're capturing, speeding events or harsh driving, or leaving a geofence boundary or within a geofence boundary. Those sorts of activities are all being captured, and they can not only be seen on a GIS, but also you can receive notifications in email and in reports as well. So the reports, there's a reports drop-down, a lot of out-of-the-box reports that are available that can be seen in the system or emailed. And again, things like you can set these up on a schedule just to be automatically sent on the schedule to various folks.
And another way to think about reports too is if I can combine the data into a report, I can combine that data and make it available to Esri as well, if it makes sense. So variables associated with points and features.
So, and we're using either points or things such as geofence boundaries. So you can either create these boundaries within LiGO, or we can import. If you have the county has existing ESRI boundaries, we can bring those in and use those boundaries to again capture data within the boundaries and get reports based on vehicles in those boundaries, or more notifications when vehicles are leaving certain areas. And we have a whole maintenance component as well, primarily for the fleet side of things. It's also a role-based system, and you can set up views for your various departments, which we're going to be doing with King County. So you'll have, for example, transportation vehicles versus, say, the police department vehicles, and whoever supervises the various groups can just see their vehicles and their reports based on those vehicles. We can also do things like routing and route optimization. So this is just an example of what you can see with plow down here. You can see a different color for where the plow is down versus plow, or they're just driving and the plow is up. So, and this data, this plow down data, is the data that, for example, we can send over to ESRI, where you can maybe do more analysis of that, or and I'll show you. We'll be showing a demonstration here of customers that are have public-facing sites where they can see this data on ESRI operations views of this data. So besides the areas, we can also capture information based on point locations. So when a vehicle is within an area, these can be buildings or assets. Vehicles arrive at those locations. Covered that. We can also do things, search geographic areas for as sort of a proof of presence if vehicles are in an area. This is good for customer service, identifying if within a time frame was a vehicle in this location. So as I mentioned earlier, LiGO is a platform as a service. So the information that we're capturing from the various assets that the county has, we can then pass this through via our LiGO access to CityWorks as live vehicle feeds within the operations map. So that could be any sort of ESRI-based operations map that you have. So you might have some templates that you're using, or customers using CityWorks for customer service, or we can populate historic data as well. So it could be both real-time or historic data that we're passing over. And here's just some of the options with LiGO access. So a lot of our customers are doing the vehicles on the operations map, and we provide an ESRI data model for you. So
Are you going to show that?
I'm going to show that.
Okay.
So, so the nice thing about that is the data model has the core fields that it's expecting from LiGO, but you can also customize or configure that data model to add your own fields as you would like to display things a little differently maybe on your side.
Hey, Rhett?
Yes?
Rhett, I've got a question. This is Tyrone. When you say populating assets, are you meaning adding features or adding assets to a work order?
So when I'm saying populating assets, I'm meaning, for example, in CityWorks, they have asset reading, so we can basically update information on that asset reading. So on the CityWorks side, it's called asset readings, and it's essentially updating within the CityWorks side.
Okay.
There's a couple of things you can do. On the GIS side, you can take these linear features or point features, overlay them on assets, and actually change condition of the asset, if that makes sense for your workflow. You could also change the condition of an asset, especially a point feature that's simple, in CityWorks as well. If you can make assumptions, like if my crew sat at my hydrant flushing crew sat at a hydrant for 20 minutes, I'm going to assume they flushed the hydrant successfully unless I heard otherwise. And so you can change the condition of that asset as well. So there's a couple different ways you can go. In some ways, the best practice is to go through Esri and update CityWorks from that. There's some other opportunities to write directly to the business system like CityWorks.
I think it's important to note that there's two types of sort of assets. One is the traditional linear assets that we're mostly familiar with, roads, signs, those kinds of assets. But now we're really introducing a new type of asset into the sort of the GIS world, and that's sort of a vehicle asset, which is a bit different characteristics, right? It's moving and those kinds of things. So just
the moving point asset. Yeah.
So it's just a little bit different conceptually as well.
While we're taking a quick break here, I'm curious if the county has been using the Esri GEP product for some of your earlier ventures or not.
Geo event processor.
Not yet. We're not even at that level yet. At 10.5, we're at 10.3.1. We don't have the enterprise set up. That's a project that's happening this year. So ArcGIS Enterprise.
Yeah, so it's not required. The geo event processor is not required for what we're talking about. It's just that's just an option. That's the nice thing about LiGO Access is it doesn't require the geo event processor to get live vehicle feeds. So
another question, assuming that you guys have for your existing AVL solution, you have fleet vehicle assets, GIS assets layer?
we provide provide that as part of our model.
Well, I'm just curious what their
Well, they're
experience
using
has been to date.
it looks like under My Commute, you have live vehicles on that.
There's sanding and plowing activities are displayed. So we've created a custom solution for that a long time ago. Actually works really well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the majority of the assets aren't mapped though. I mean, vehicle.
The vehicles aren't,
Assets.
you know, I mean, roads, services were the only ones that had put AVL on as a pilot originally, and now it's just on their sanding, their trucks. They're sanding and plowing trucks. So it's only maybe 40 vehicles tops.
Yeah.
It sounds like it must be something similar then, in that you're bringing in a point or linear features into Esri now, right?
Yeah, it eventually goes to Esri, but long story short is we do it through when they meet the condition, plow down, plow up, ignition on, what's the other, sander on, sander off. When they meet the condition that's appropriate, we collect that GPS point, and then we run it against our linear referencing routes. So we have an LRS, it's called road segment route, and then we build events, linear events off of that, and then we offset them based on the direction they're going.
Right, okay.
Okay. This option wasn't around when we created this whole, I guess it's executable.
So these two.
Yeah, we at Marshall do have some experience creating events from collected points. We did that for another customer. So
Linear event?
Yeah, linear events.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we could
we can
still
go
work
over that.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's another product. It's called CompassCom, and they've had it for 10 years. That's what's being exposed to my commute. So.
Yeah, so the two bullets here, the key thing here is this is the live vehicles, and this is where we're taking data, the historic data, and pushing that over to ESRI. And these are two. One is a vehicle feature class that we provide, and then the other is a tracks feature class, which I'll show you the data model that represents these two here. And then, you know, again, you can have live vehicles in CityWorks, and it's fairly straightforward to create the configuration within CityWorks that points to the map services. So we're just, these can be feature services that we can talk a little bit more detail about that here in a minute. Here's just some examples of, it could either be ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Server, where we're bringing the tracks over, and we can filter that just based on what's actually plowed, or we can send you the complete data, and we can send those in intervals of how frequently you need to have that data. So that's going one way. We can also bring map services into LiGO itself, so we can have as base layers within LiGO additional map and map services that the county has as well. That can be base maps. And I mentioned already a little bit about our LiGO geodatabase model, and I'll show you that here. So let's get over to the demo.
Any questions while we're switching gears here?
Yeah, I've got a question about CityWorks. Which version are you currently supporting?
Jay, do you know which version is that I believe we're working with the latest?
We're going through the CityWorks API, which provides us some isolation from the underlying version. I would have to look it up to see what version we're actually operating against. I don't know off the top.
The only reason I ask is, one, because we're looking to upgrade to 15.2, and they no longer support Silverlight at that version. And I noticed your examples, we're using the Silverlight map, so I was just wondering if you have the JavaScript version as well.
Well, the map we showed you is just consuming data that we've sent to your ESRI. So as long as the new version of CityWorks supports importing a ArcGIS server layer, that's how that's done. That should still, that's all on CityWorks end to continue supporting the same process.
Okay, so there's no like map side toolbars or anything in CityWorks, it's just the display?
I think so, but Rhett would probably be better equipped to answer that than I am.
We're not embedded in a CityWorks toolbar. It's just displaying the mobile assets within the CityWorks environment.
Okay, just like Freon. Okay, here. Or Compass.com, yeah.
Yeah, so this is just the LiGO interface itself. So customers can log in and then be able to filter based on their vehicles. I can do, you can see this one's currently active and live moving here. We also have the driver ID, so you could be able to do things like identify the driver of the vehicle. I can right-click and draw today's tracks, and it'll sort of draw the tracks for the day, and then you can see, for example, where vehicles have stopped with these red circles. So right here, there's actually 2 stops, 4 hours and 59 minutes up by the University of Washington there. If I go down here to the track section, I can do a replay and be able to see exactly where the vehicle has driven. I'll speed this up a little bit so I get an idea. Replay there, and he's up there for 4 hours, so drag that along. But that's just a way to visually see where the vehicle has driven, for example. And then if we want to get down to the real details, the track points tab gets individual breadcrumbs. So this is the linear track side of things, and then the detailed events or detailed breadcrumbs are in the tracks points tab. And we can turn on other information here based on what's important, such as the broom down or broom up, or things like speed, for example. And we can export that data out. So we can export it out, for example, as CSV or KML or other formats. We can also visually see this information in a graph, so we can see the high and low points here. I can click on the graph and it'll show you the location of where that has occurred, for example. I mentioned earlier about the proof of presence tool, so if I can just clear this in the Husky Stadium here. Parking lot. So if I wanted to see, for example, if someone was doing something in this parking lot, I can use this proof of presence and just drag a box over the parking lot. Go back to last week here. Go from Thursday to Friday, and then do a search. And I'll identify any. Yes, you have a question?
That was just someone calling in.
So I can see, this vehicle right here drove through this area 7:22 p.m. You can see the track of exactly where they went through that area, for example.
There's a couple of notes on this that I just wanted to make. One is, you can actually ask it a question like, only show me events where somebody was speeding within that area. And then this kind of search tool takes somebody about 10 minutes at most how to learn. So with LiGO, we have some features and functions that through the embedded Google Maps can be broadcast to a wide number of people where they can pick it up and use it really quickly. Then there's others where you need more analytical tools, like let's say you're trying to map work accomplishments of plow down relative to your road network. And that's where you want to import those linear features into Esri and do those maybe weekly or monthly or quarterly analytics. And so that's been our position with LiGO, is make some of the stuff super easy to get at, takes 5 minutes to learn, and other data is really more appropriate to process within the Esri platform. And so it's a hybrid in that way, and I just wanted to make that clear. It's sort of think of LiGO as being a time series database that you, with good spatial data, that you can pull into Esri for things that maybe we haven't even thought of yet.
A lot of mapping, a lot of advanced mapping types of capabilities and those kinds of things. We have simple mapping within LiGO just for simple query displays, but
yeah, but it's fast. It's something most users can do without any training because they're used to Google Maps. So it meets those needs quickly, but it's not going to meet all of the GIS-based needs.
Just a quick question, is it configurable for different raster maps?
Different,
I see you're using, sorry?
Yeah, so,
different raster maps?
so if you want
Well,
to talking about, go ahead. Question?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have map services that have rasters, you know, like our base map. King County has its own base map. We're not using the Google base map. We have, vector maps we'd like to display.
Yeah, so underneath the maps option, we can add different map services. So Google Maps is sort of the default, and then we can put in, so as an example, world imagery is another service, or ArcGIS Online is calling another one. Portland base map is a completely different one. So to answer your question, yeah, we can work with basically other map services that we can bring in as options different than Google Maps.
So if one user wants to see a certain kind of base map that's a county-sourced layer, then they can see that.
Yeah,
So
and it can handle multiple base maps. Like we have orthophotography and raster and, the base map, our generic base we call it.
So yeah, you would just add different, you could add different base maps here.
To that list, okay.
Yeah, and we just configure those, and basically you just provide us the URL link, and we add it into there as a drop down, and then you can even decide who sees it and who doesn't see it, and all of that.
they're administrators.
So you,
Actually, right?
yeah, the administrator can't configure that?
What's that?
An administrator couldn't figure that from the county side?
Well,
It would take you guys to do it?
initially, and through training, we can train you how to do it.
So there's no interface to figure?
There is an interface, yeah.
There is. We can expose that.
Initially, we do it for you based on the URL that you send us.
The answer would be, yeah, we can let you have access to that configuration tool. We just want to put someone through some training before we did that.
Sure.
Okay, so a couple things is I showed you tracks. So this is actually a public-facing site here where we're sending tracks over to where they can add it into their operations map to see where they're sweeping streets. You can see different colors here based on the vehicles that are doing this.
So this is the city of Portland, Maine. This is their live site. If you go out there, when you get done with this, and query Portland, Maine street sweeping, they just made a public site so their citizens could have access to what streets were swept. So this is just bringing LiGO event data over into an ArcGIS layer, and then they are using ArcGIS Online to display that. They also have, which Rhett's pointing to, live vehicles, although their sweepers are at the yard here today. They're plowing today. I think they're in Portland. But so anyway, so they have both live vehicles being fed from LiGO, and then historical events, which are their street sweeping events. If you were to pull down the menu, they just have a choice of by month. So they're bringing over weekly, but they just got for customers, you can turn on and off different months of street sweeping.
Another one is also New York. So we're sending over a plow. So not only the location of the plow locations, but also it's connected to their controllers, so they're able to get information on the controller spreading rates and salt spread and so forth over to their winter operations application as well. And these are again, we provide the data model here, which we can help and work with you on. But it has feature classes. They're a default, but again, those can be configured, and you can add additional fields onto those feature classes, either the vehicle tracks or vehicle position, which is the vehicle itself.
Can you consume SDE data?
Consume SDE
or is it all
data.
file geodatabase, not an enterprise SDE?
So if we're sending data to you, it can be in an SDE, or it can be, so whatever data you have. But basically, typically what you'll do is you'll set up a feature service, and we'll send data to that feature service. But it could be SDE, or it could be file geodatabase in terms of the format.
That's
I'm
one
just a
nice
little
thing about,
One second.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's a nice thing about using the geodatabase is you can use that in any Esri data format file you might want, where there were a little bit more restrictions with the GEP tool. And in addition, we can do some pre-processing of the data, like not give you the data make sure there's a 15-minute delay at least, so that people don't go and harass the snowplow operators and things like that for public-facing views. But because we're just populating the geodatabase, you've got an immense amount of flexibility on what you do with the data.
So as far as archiving and how much data is stored in the geodatabase for history, maybe you do some analysis on it afterward.
So the live vehicles, what it's doing is it's just doing an update. So it's not storing the live vehicle, it's just basically overwriting the previous one. So there's not a lot of storage there. The tracks, it depends on how long you want to keep the tracks, the historic tracks. So things like this, you can set it up to remove it after a time period, but we're just basically sending historic tracks over to your geodatabase, and then you can purge it based on your type.
Yeah, you have the flexibility once it's over in your system to do as long as you like. In the LiGO time series data that's being collected in the web application, the county is still determining what purge date they'd like. Typically, we keep about 2 years, sometimes 3. sometimes customers want it deleted immediately.
That's on the LiGO side.
That's on the LiGO side in the web application. So just so you're aware of that, that's another decision being made. And once data's over in the geo database, then you can,
Falls under your data rules,
yeah,
whatever those are.
whatever your stops are, you can apply.
So it is in one feature class, essentially, tracks. I saw that in the file geodatabase. Is that?
Yeah.
That's correct, okay. It's a one line feature class.
Yeah, so it's not a bunch of messy breadcrumbs. It's a linear feature with direction
Okay.
and data attached to it.
And you host the database and the web services and all of that?
Yeah, we do.
Are you asking if we host the LiGO database or the Esri geodatabase?
Well, the LiGO database essentially, so you get a signal in from the AVL, it goes into some sort of parser, hits a database, you do something to it, you expose it to your application. So
Right.
you're handling all that in a database.
We
Correct.
are. And then when it's sent over to your geodatabase, it's in your coordinate system.
Right.
So it's ready to go. To
Yeah.
GIS.
I mean, we had to figure out a bunch of stuff with the old solution, so that's
Yeah, no, it's ready to go. Jay's been point on that, and converting and prepping the data so that it's just ready to be consumed.
yeah.
And we send, what we send to your ArcGIS server feature service is Esri standard JSON, either linear or point.
Okay.
And if you would like to quickly see an example of that, we can show that to you.
I think not for this audience, maybe. Probably
Okay.
more than this, but
I mean,
definitely later in the solution.
yeah, like to, no problem.
I mean, we're going to have to build out a solution for my commute. If this is the the data feed, so the idea is to try to get that as easy as possible. And maybe geo event solution might be ready for it by that time.
It may not allow you as much flexibility either, though. There's some things we're doing, prepping the data, that I don't believe you can do with the GEP. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, GEP is a black box. You're limited to what, some things you can do with it.
What's really nice about our current solution is that we can relate it to our linear referenced routes, and then all of the assets are based off of a linear referencing system of those routes, and so you can relate those to any route without even a GIS. You could do it through just database SQL queries. So,
Yeah, we're going to want to probably. We're going to want to use your, if that's, that makes sense, right? Tying it to your linear reference system. And that you could still do, right? You could take the linear features and or point features. I mean, take a specific app like My Commute and tie them to the linear referencing system that you're using now. And that should work even easier in that you're not having to do a bunch of the post or pre-processing of the features.
that would be nice. If it wasn't in Greenwich Mean Time or
Right. No, none of
some
that.
UTM projection or something.
Yes.
No, we convert to local time, and we also project to a standard projection.
Is it Web Mercator?
It's whatever you specify.
Okay.
We have customers using UTM. We have customers using the state plane feet specific to their location. Are you Washington North or Washington South? You're pretty close to the border between the two. So do you know what state plane feet you're using?
Yeah, we're in North.
You're North, okay.
But all of our web maps are reprojected into state Web Mercator. That's okay. This is from the map service perspective.
Yeah, you specify to us what projection you want your coordinates in.
Yeah, okay.
So we'd probably want to, you know, in a kickoff meeting, we'll have Jay up there, and we'll go over some of these things that, you know, you want to see, and we'll just set them. We'll sort of have a project, we'll have some sort of project documentation of the requirements, you know, within what LiGO is doing now, and nothing too extreme, but I think we have enough flexibility to be able to meet your needs in terms of getting the data into, pick an application, and we'll set that up.
Yeah, so as a quick review here, we can bring map layers, your ArcGIS map layers into LiGO, and then we can push data over into ArcGIS layers, and we can push either point-based feature or linear features over at different rates into GIS. So,
or put vehicles on any ongoing operations map you might be using, whether it's a, you know, CityWorks or...
yeah, that's the point-based.
Yeah, it's just different than populating a point feature on the geodatabase, though. So, yeah, a lot of flexibility there.
GIS data in there.
No, attribute maybe, but.
Is there a question there, or?
No, it's just a comment on the way Roads wants to go to edit their data. We have some custom solutions for that too, but if you do the geofencing thing, let's say, and then you wanted to flip the asset to active, like you were saying, you're sitting next to a stop sign, that could get ugly for a little bit, depending on what the crews are doing. There's also concerns about like the GPS being spotty in the outer county here, based on whatever configuration the satellites are in for that given day. We also had some problems with signal delays, which created some false positives on the tracking. These are some of the geographical problems we have with the existing system. I'm assuming it's the same, using the same satellites to get your GPS coordinates, right?
Yes. Yeah, so there'll be some of those similar nuances when they go out of a cell range. It doesn't lose anything, it stores forward, but it won't update until it gets back to finds a tower and updates again. So, you know, some of those things could be negated with some satellite coverage, but that's way more expensive type coverage versus Verizon or some other type of cell service.
I'd like to see the proof of concept on the store board. We could never really get that to work right.
Oh.
Yeah, so we have that, I mean, in the valley here, when, for example, we're in Boise, they head up north of us, up to McCall, there's places where you lose connectivity, and what it does is it loses, but it stores on the device, and then as soon as a connection is made again, it basically redraws that track, and it just, you'll actually spit it all out and redraw it. It all gets stored on the device until a connection is made, but the track looks really good, even though it loses connection for just a bit.
Yeah, we can send you over an example too. One of our employees drove to Michigan this summer, and we had to track his vehicle, and he lost coverage many times going across the hinterlands of Wyoming and out there.
Can we show that?
And we can
Can
show
we
that.
show where it was?
No,
You
we
wouldn't
won't
know
show
it.
where it lost, we can show the contiguous track.
Yeah,
where
we
it
can
did-
show that, yeah.
Yeah.
We can
I
tell you.
I
where
was
it's
really
at.
just more concerned about losing the GPS signal versus the cell coverage. You know, when you don't have any data coming in, you're not gonna, they won't know where their XYs were, if you lose satellite coverage.
Well,
Cell
we're
coverage is,
tracking the satellite.
Yeah, so
feed,
we
so-
have the HDOP and the satellite. So over down here, you can turn on satellite count and HDOP, and obviously low HDOP, you have, it's better than high HDOP, and then obviously high satellite is better. So you can see here, 10 satellites, HDOP of 1. But when you get into, there are cases where vehicles go maybe into a building or down into a parking garage. You'll see those cases where the satellite will get down to 4 or 5 satellites, and the HDOP goes up in those cases. And that's,
It depends on your, it also really depends on what vendor you're using for cellular and how well that does in what area, but that's a bigger discussion.
Talking about the GPS.
Oh,
versus
yeah, sorry, I'm switching, I was still on cellular.
the cell store part is straightforward, but the GPS, it loses its, you don't know where they're at. Essentially, that's what's happening. There's no way to store it forward.
Right. If there's
You'll know
no,
where they were the last time.
Yeah.
You'll know where, it'll show the vehicle location of where they were, if they're,
last
Right.
name.
yeah, last seen.
And then if there is no GPS, if you can't get to the satellites and you don't have a location.
Right.
But there's not much we can do about that.
No, well,
Except
sometimes,
that those devices, except there's some really cool things you can do with mesh networks for assets that are not moving around all the time. We have a mesh network that's collecting and then pushing out through a cellular connection. Again, I'm switching gears on you, sorry, I'm talking about where there's no cellular, and the assets aren't moving a lot, so you don't need the GPS. So there are some workarounds there. But, other than that, we're using, pretty mainstream GPS collectors here that are dominant in the U.S., the CalAmp devices. Have been proven, and they're one of the dominant players in the U.S., so.
So we have a couple
So, but
minutes
when
left. Want to make sure we got all your questions answered for you.
Rhett, when it does go kind of dark, aren't you able to notify somebody, or aren't you kind of tracking it on the back end?
Yeah, you can set up event rules that notifies if it's based on either you want those
The
HTOPs or satellites to be a certain amount, you can send a notification there, or if the vehicle hasn't shown up for a while, in other words, it's been turned off, there's ways to send a notification. So there's a lot of different things with business rules that you can set up that sends a notification to someone to say, hey, check on this vehicle because it hasn't shown in a week or something along those lines. And
Or hasn't shown in an hour
yeah,
or
so
two, or
Yeah.
it's a matter of defining what the rule is that you want. And
Alrighty, well, I think that's probably all we can cover today. We have 1 minute. Thank you for setting this up, and I think you recorded it, right?
yes.
So Mike Crippen could watch it later, or others in the GIS team could watch it later. If you just
Okay.
send us a link to it.
Yeah, it'll take us a little bit to process it, but we'll get it to you when we get done the processing of getting it out there.
No problem.
thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Nice meeting you, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 I wanna-